the working class is always under assault from the capitalist ruling class, the one percenters, the billionaires. What is the Communist Party's approach to addressing joblessness, underemployment, low wages? Can you elaborate, please?
I think the answer to that is for the next Parliament to curb corporate power in Canada. Well, the best answer is socialism, because the problems that working people are facing are caused by capitalism. But unfortunately, socialism's not on the agenda in this election. But it is something that we want working people to think about, because all of these problems have capitalism at their base. But the next Parliament can certainly take strong action to curb corporate power, and this ties in with the issue of work and joblessness and wages and so on through the free trade agreement, and what it is doing to workers like the workers at General Motors in Oshawa, for example, and for that matter, auto workers and other workers across our country. So the free trade agreement is not about trade, although it was sold that way in 1988. What it's actually, it is a corporate constitution which allows the biggest companies like the big three automakers to move their production wherever they want to in the hemisphere across North America. And where they're going to set up is where the wages are lowest. And the situation in Canada is, with more than 30% of the labor force unionized, our wages are better here than they are anywhere else in the hemisphere. And as far as the Communist Party is concerned, that's a good thing. And we would like to see a race to the top. We'd like to see workers in the United States and Mexico also making good wages, and also unionized, and also having a better life than the life they have now. Well, I said that the highest pay for auto workers is in Canada, so it's about $30 an hour. In the U.S., it's about $16 an hour. And in Mexico, it's $3 an hour. So if you were the CEO of General Motors, you would also set up your operations in Mexico and say goodbye to Canada. Doesn't matter how good the production is, your profits are going to be a lot higher if your wages are 1/10 of what they are in Canada. So this suits the corporations, but it doesn't suit workers in Canada. It doesn't suit the Canadian economy either. It's going to hurt. It's going to be a huge ripple effect, because of course it isn't only General Motors and it isn't only the Oshawa plant that are going to close. It will be all of the big three operations that will close down sooner or later. And whether we like it or not, auto is still the engine of the Canadian economy, and there will be many people will find themselves out of work. So the solution, of course, and I should also say, it isn't only auto. It is going to have everything to do with manufacturing and secondary industry. Workers who work in those sectors are going to be facing the same competition with low-waged workers in Mexico and the United States. So the solution is to get out of the free trade deals. The USMCA deal hasn't yet been ratified by Parliament. The next Parliament should refuse to ratify it. Say no thanks, it's bad for Canada. We're not going to do it. And by the looks of things, we could have a minority government, and this would be the opportunity to actually defeat this deal. It should be done. We also want to see plant closure legislation. So this would be a legislation which would require corporations like General Motors and all of them to show just cause why they're closing their plants. And to say, well, because we can pay workers 1/10 of what we pay in Canada if we move our operations. No, not an acceptable reason, not a good reason. You can't do it. You can leave, but your plant and your operations stay here. And in the case of General Motors, what we are saying is, if we had plant closure legislation, then we should stop General Motors. But in the current situation where we don't have that, and we're in the free trade deals, the government should actually nationalize the General Motors and all of the big three operations in Canada. And this should be part of a new transportation policy and system in Canada. We should be building electric cars in Oshawa. But, there's lots of operations, and we could do a lot more than electric cars. So we want to see, for example, mass rapid transit. Should be built in Canada, could be built in those plants. And we want to see rail for interurban service. Now with Greyhound departing from northern and remote communities, there's a big hole there. How do people get from A to B unless they own a car, a gas guzzling car? So we need a publicly owned transportation system that will meet their needs too. So a new transportation system, which we could look at implementing. We could thank General Motors for that push in that direction. But it's overdue and it's important. It should be publicly owned. It should be under democratic control. And it should include Bombardier, by the way, because they've been at the public trough, just like General Motors and the rest of them, for a very long time. We virtually own the company based on public investments in it. So let's have a complete transportation industry under public ownership.